Hey everybody, my name is Jeremy Watkin. Welcome to Coffee and Customer Service. It's a phone.com Friday. I'm here with my partner in crime, Jenny Dempsey. We're from phone.com and communicatebetterblog.com, and we have a great lineup for you today. I'm drinking water. What are you up to today, Jenny?
You know what? I actually have coffee today for coffee and customer service in my beautiful Starbucks California mug. So cheers to your water.
And we also have a special guest. Shoot, I should have asked how to pronounce your last name. So if I mess this up, I'm in trouble. But Leslie Flavahan?
Choke.
Oh.
It's
Hey everybody,
Oklahaven.
my name is Jeremy White.
Leaving. All right.
Coffee and Customer Service. It's food.com Friday. I'm here with my partner in crime, Jenny Dempsey. We're from phone.com and communicatebetterblog.com, and we have a YouTube open today. I'm drinking water. What are you up to today, Jenny?
You know what? I actually have coffee today for coffee and customer service in my beautiful Starbucks California mug. So cheers to your water.
And we also have a special guest. Do you have YouTube open, Leslie?
Not anymore.
I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, it was just a short episode of three people with awkward looks on their faces, and I take full responsibility for it, and I'm sorry. I didn't have it open. I've silenced everything. I've muzzled the dog, but I did have it open, and I got caught in an echo chamber. So I'm sorry, Jeremy. Everything you said for the last 40 seconds, could you say it again?
Yeah, okay, so I didn't put that in the rules for the hangout. I need to add that. So it's funny how failing to set guidelines sometimes can lead to some funny
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so I'm still stuck on the pronunciation of your last name.
Okay, here we go. It's Oklahaven. I'm Leslie Oklahaven. There you go.
Haven. Now that is way cooler than what I came up with.
You said Ofla choke.
You know, it's funny because your Twitter handle is @LeslieO, and that's the coolest Twitter handle. So I was like, oh, I don't even think I know Leslie's last name.
Yep.
So there you go. There's awkward moment number one from our hangout. So Leslie, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure, I'd be glad to. I'm Leslie O'Flahaven still, and my company is called eWrite, and we're based in the D.C. suburbs. We're in Silver Spring, Maryland. We are 18 years old in May. I'm the owner of the company, and our mission is to help people learn to write well for customers in whatever channel the customers want to communicate in. So we help customer service organizations write great email, chat, social media, and text. We are not above helping you write a great letter if that's how your customers roll. And we also help customer care organizations with all of the other tasks around directly writing to the customer, measuring the quality of what you've written, managing the library of pre-written or templated responses, recruiting the right people to do the tasks of writing to customers. So that's it in a big nutshell.
That is very cool. So one question that comes to me, which is totally, I'll get to our main topic in just a sec, but how has it been in the last 5-10 years of your work with the emergence of social media? How has that changed your job quite a bit and what your company does?
Well, that'll be a big yes and no, and I'll tell you why. Because I really believe, I fundamentally believe that writing at work is a learned skill. And I have seen no other group take change in stride better than people who work in the customer care world. So when you add social media, you could say it's the biggest change our community's ever seen, or you could say it's a thing. It's a thing, and I've kind of gone with the latter. It's a thing. We can learn to do it. We can learn to do it well, and like a lot of the writing that comes from customer care organizations, sometimes we do it well and sometimes we do it poorly, and I think that's happening in social media too, that there's some organizations that really are communicating successfully in their brand voice and efficiently with customers, solving customers' problems in social channels. And I see also lots of companies that are writing what I call the say nothing, do nothing customer service tweet. As in, I got back to you in 15 seconds. Nothing happened. So social is a big thing, but just another thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. So our topic today is actually Jenny and I kind of came up with this on the fly a couple weeks ago. We talked about some of our pet peeves of phone service as far as customer service goes, pet peeve things that people do on the phone, and we thought we'd tackle written customer service. I kind of went back and forth as to whether we should break that up a little bit more. We may have picked more than we can tackle in one hangout by saying all of written customer service, but I think that's why we thought maybe we needed Leslie, a real pro on this topic, to join us today. So Jenny, maybe you can kick us off. What are some of your pet peeves of written customer service?
Oh, man. Well, Leslie, you brought up a very good starter. So about social media, where they do those tweets and they don't really say anything, but they respond really quick. The same could go for email or even chat support, saying a lot of stuff without saying anything at all. And sometimes you'll get email replies that are just so long and they don't even touch on the issue at hand. They don't really say anything at all. It's just a lot of words. And then you also have the exact opposite, where you write, this long-winded email and you have all the details and everything, and then you get a one-sentence response back that has nothing to do with anything either. And it's like, wow, like you could say a lot in one big paragraph and you could say a lot of nothing in one small sentence. And that drives me nuts. It's like, just attend to it. Like I used to, when I was a kid, I was in this pen pal program and we learned how to write effective letters to stay with pen pals. I know it sounds so cheesy, but I use that a lot when I write. I'm like, okay, well, let me focus on what they're saying sentence by sentence, to make sure to address it. But that saying a lot without saying anything is one of my biggest pet peeves. Leslie, do you find that a lot of companies struggle with that and they don't know really how to attend to the issues at hand when they're, confronted with problems and they have to respond through email?
I do find that, because the skill that it takes to be able to answer the right amount is a pretty sophisticated one, and most customer service agents are doing their work in a kind of a mass call kind of a way. So when you gave your example of reading your pen pal's letter to you and ticking off one by one the things that you wanted to respond to, that's a kind of critical reading. It's not just list making, it's critical reading. But when people need to do this in the customer service center, they have a very hard job. They have to use the intellectual power to separate what the customer said, which could be a boatload of nonsense and unhappiness, from what the customer is asking. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to separate what the customer said from what she asked. Mm-hmm. And sometimes a customer will write a gigantic long email without a single question mark in it. This is the same in chat. Someone chats in, and in a number of fast-flowing, short utterances, the customer is saying something, but the service doesn't begin until the agent figures out what the customer is asking. And that goes back to your comment, Jenny. I'm calling you Goldilocks in the nicest possible way. You are talking, too hard, too soft. I need just right. Just right is not just one certain length. Mm-hmm. Just right comes when you answer the question.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's long, sometimes it's short. But you have to answer the question. So I do think customer care organizations struggle with that. And here's the worst idea you've heard all day. We need to fix the customers.
Yes. I'm going to add, just because this is funny, size doesn't matter then, whether it's a long email or a short email, whether you get it right and you address the issue. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I had to throw that in.
You said it, not me.
Yeah, and I love the focus on when you get it right, this helping our teams understand that when we get it right, really understand what the customer is saying and what they aren't saying, then we have a better shot at getting everything resolved in as few of emails as possible, which is really critical.
Yes, yes. What we want more than anything is less email.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my favorites from being a CSR was always the when the customer, and this is kind of looking at from the CSR perspective, but when the customer sends all caps.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to just fire back a response that says, can you turn your caps lock key off? I don't appreciate being yelled at.
Yeah.
Rather than looking at the actual meaning of it. I've been, Jenny knows this, but I've been reading a lot about emotional intelligence lately and how how our emotions come into play when we read stuff. Do you deal with that, Leslie, in your line of work as far as the emotional response or identifying those emotions?
Yeah. Yes, I absolutely do deal with that. It's another reason that writing to customers in any channel, writing all day long is a hard job. You know, it's just like talking to customers all day long is a hard job. Customers are usually more emotional when they ask for service than the average 100 people you might meet in the road. And when you're encountered with emotion over and over and over again, it can be hard. And we know that when customers are talking on the phone, that until their emotions have calmed, they can't even hear what you've said. And it's the same when you're providing service in a written channel, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous. If the customer's still really hot under the collar, the customer can't understand or accept what you're saying either way. So yeah, I do think emotional intelligence is an important trait for the rep to have or the agent to have. And they usually have it in spades. They usually have boatloads of emotional intelligence, but they developed it on the phone. And it may be hard to carry that emotional intelligence from the phone to the written setting.
So what's one of your pet peeves, Leslie?
Well, you know, if you asked me, but I would guess that you think I am going to say that I don't like spelling and punctuation and grammar mistakes. And I don't like them. I don't like them, but that's not the worst thing you can do. I'll go back to what Jenny said. Answer the question. You know, even if you fumble, even if you make a spelling, punctuation, or grammar error, even if you're not super friendly when you should be super friendly, answer the question. So if you don't answer the question, that's a big pet peeve. I also try to keep it straight in my mind what the agent needs to be responsible for and what the management needs to be responsible for. So I don't have a pet peeve if the agent has used a template, if the agent is being told to use a template, you know. If you don't want your communication to sound templated, then at a management level, you have to change that strategy, not at the agent level.
That's great advice. You know, I was thinking along the emotional side, the opposite of what I said is, I wrote a couple weeks ago about how I shared a concern with my bank and I got a canned response back saying, wait 7 to 10 days. And I wrote them back and I was like, man, I just shared how this is causing me a hardship and all you can do is a canned response. But that's a great reminder that that canned responses, if management tells people to use them, then that's a management thing. That's a great advice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, let me ask you a question, Leslie, because one thing that we find a lot with chat support and email is tone in the email. And we find a lot of customers on chat support, when they contact us, they're using real short, chat lingo and their smiley faces. And some people really love it when we communicate back to them with that. And the same goes through email. When we're very conversational, people really dig it. When we get feedback about it, they'll say, oh, I just loved, I felt like I was talking to my friend when I was trying to solve an issue. But then you have the people that don't really dig it. They want to be called Mr. So-and-so, and they want to be super professional. So how do you recommend, because, you know, when you first are given the customer, you don't know how to really kick it off and which way it's going to go, casual or professional. Is there any guidelines of when you start communication with the customer? Do you start with the more professional and then kind of see what happens, or is there kind of a middle ground that you can do where it's kind of both? Because, you know, you never know what the person wants, and some people love it, some people hate it. Do you have any advice for do that? And tone is so important.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
I do have advice, but I think we have to handle email and chat separately, because with email, you know, you're just lobbing your communication out into cyberspace. You don't know. The only thing you can look at is the way the customer addressed you and wrote to you, and you can kind of take some hints from the way the customer wrote you. But when you're writing chat, you know, you can do a little quick correct if you've chosen the wrong tone. So how are we going to decide? How in the world will we decide? My general advice in how do you decide what tone you should use is that you look to your management for guidance, and your management should be helping you deliver customer service in your brand's voice.
Okay.
Right? Now, that's not the end of the story, but that's the beginning of the story. So, for example, I've worked for Hawaiian Airlines, and they greet customers mahalo, aloha, they close with mahalo. Why? Not just because they're Hawaiian words, but because this spirit of hospitality and Hawaiian hospitality is part of their brand. You know, all of the gate agents in the airports wear flowers in their hair. It's this, it's that hospitable, welcoming tone. So you could certainly begin a customer communication aloha, and then the customer in chat, and then the customer would come back and say, talk normal, you know, okay, and we switch. But customer service agents are so good at this switch. They're, you know, as Jeremy was talking about, their emotional intelligence, their EQ is really high, especially if they've been on the phone. They have a subtle way of, you know, kind of steering that ship over to the way the customer wants to be heard from. So in email, you make your best guess and you stay loyal to your brand voice. In dignity and in friendliness, you stay loyal to your brand voice. In chat, you make your best guess and then you readjust based on what the customer wants.
That's really great advice. Thank you.
And it also helps bring marketing and closer to each other, because the keepers of the brand voice are the marketing folks. And especially social, we need to be sounding the same way as our marketing does, or it's just a really inconsistent customer experience or journey.
No, it's interesting.
What do you think about some of these rogue chat conversations that we've seen lately? You know, I think, was it Amazon where Thor talked with his father, and there was another one, I think Netflix maybe, that.
Yeah. I think they're great. I think if we studied them, you know, like scholars, we would see that the agent is using the same skill. You know, it's a pretty mundane skill for customer care agents. It's their high EQ. It's their sense that they want to steer the discussion to a successful close, and it's in companies that trust them, it's their willingness to take a little bit of a risk.
Man, how many of your clients do you speak with that think that text is just text and they don't realize that it's a powerful tool for being able to make that emotional connection? Something we talk about with our agents all the time, but to make that emotional connection, even with our words with the customer, it's obviously different than speaking directly with them. You take cues differently, but do you encounter clients where they don't even take the emotional side into the text that they're delivering to customers?
No, not really. Because you mean chat, or do you actually mean SMS text?
Maybe I think I'm talking more like email, and mostly email, I guess, in that case.
No, I think people in email and chat are very different in how you deliver the emotional part of the engagement. Because again, you know, in email you're just tossing it into the darkness and hoping that it connects with the customer. But I think most of my clients are somewhat less meta than the three of us are being. They're a little bit less reflective, maybe a little bit less introspective, but they know it. They know successful connection when they see it.
Mm.
They recognize this is working, that is not working. You know, definitely.
Yeah.
And with chat, the hurdles for chat are so low. You know, companies that launch it usually like it, customers like it, it offloads volume in other channels. So, you know, folks want chat writing to work well.
So I think I don't know if it's really a pet peeve for me, but I could see how it could be a pet peeve for some people. And I'm a little foggy on the details, but I know I've read articles from you on this topic. But especially when we talk about chat, social media, and SMS customer service, using short forms and abbreviations of words. Sometimes, you know, one that I've written about in the past is when someone writes THX for thanks, and it feels really impersonal to me. Impersonal and short, but then, you know, there's all the different things like see you soon. I could get on the whiteboard and start writing them out. But what are your guys' feelings on those?
I'll let Jenny go first.
Well, you know, it's interesting because in one way, while yeah, it does feel really impersonal, it's also becoming a huge part of communication for the younger generation, and that's how they speak to each other. And it has the same meanings. It's just maybe it's a generational thing. It's just we don't really see it as so serious. We just kind of see it as like these people are LOL. Why don't they just laugh? Like, you know, and so I think, though, that it's a definite generational gap. And it's funny, though, and no offense to anyone, but sometimes, like, you know, my dad's a little bit older, and when he'll say things like that, you know, he'll throw in things, I'm like, oh, wait, does he even know what that means? And so it's kind of like, you never know with that email, like maybe it's someone's dad who just saw their kid say THX and is like, oh, I'm going to try this and use it. It's so short. Or it's some kid who's like, actually means thanks, but that's how they spell it these days because there's all these weird words. And I don't know. It's a tricky one, but I don't know. What do you think, Leslie?
Well, I think we're living in a time for customer care writing when this is really difficult to gauge because things are changing really fast. So these shorthand, you know, THX is a pretty dignified one, LOL is a pretty dignified one, you know, there are others that are a lot less dignified. But even just now, I think if we could go like this and have a hangout reunion in 18 months, even in that little bit of time, I think we might feel differently because language is in a huge state of flux, and what's considered appropriate business language is in a very high state of flux. And I want to challenge you, Jenny, a little bit on the abbreviations, the text speak. Text speak is a way for people to feel close to each other because they're using language that's shortened, that's in the know. Yes, that is definitely true. It's a way that generations separate from each other. There's certain text speak that young kids use that older people don't. But text speak, the source of it is the tedium of texting quickly on a tiny keyboard.
That's
and
true.
in fact, it's more appropriate if you're a geezer. It's more tedious to type or to text on a small keyboard when you wear bifocals or trifocals. So if you think about it as a user experience or a user interface issue and not a generational issue, I think we need to be a little bit more ready to take some of the text speak in stride, and we definitely do not want to go all English teacher on it. No way.
Yeah.
You know, part of how we communicate now, it is not a sign of ignorance or of insubstantiality. It's just a part of the change in our language. So you go back to the brand voice. Does your brand voice allow for text speak?
That's a really great way to look at it, and I didn't think of that, but it is totally part of the customer experience. Absolutely. And it makes sense why my dad would do that. So yeah, I get it.
One of my clients is Abercrombie and Fitch. When they're chatting, they say, "Hey, thanks for chatting in." You know, this is their templated greeting is "Hey." So how far is it from "Hey" to a smiley? Not very. You know, it's like this far from "Hey" to smiley.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting.
That's funny. I've definitely encountered I don't know, Jenny, with your dad, I've encountered like my mother-in-law was using LOL thinking it meant lots of love, and we thought it was really weird that she was putting laugh out loud at the end of all her emails.
Aww.
Some of those ones with dual meanings can be dangerous as well.
Yeah.
Kind of eye-opening when you think, oh, I might have been sending a customer a completely different message than what I intended.
Right, and actually that is the best reason not to use them. If there is any concern that the meaning isn't stable, you don't use it, you know.
Yeah.
But they are sneaking into our advertising a lot. So, you know, how far, you know, when the advertising is using GREAT, GR8, right?
Yeah.
If advertising using it, then you're the customer care agent and somebody's asking you about the GREAT coupon. Now you're using it. So how different is it to drop a THX later in the chat?
Yeah.
I guess if it's consistent with your company voice, that really makes sense.
Yeah. It totally does. Wow.
Man, there's so much to consider here. You've sufficiently blown my mind today.
I know. The wheels are like spinning. I'm like thinking of all the different ways now. Like, this is very cool. Thank you.
So, any other pet peeves from you guys that we missed?
Sometimes just not getting a reply at all. I mean, that sucks. But, yeah.
How about, I know a peeve, but again, we don't blame the agent for it. It's not the agent's responsibility, but when a company sends you an auto response, you get the auto response comes in 35 minutes, and then the time frame they allot for an actual response is, way too long. You will hear from us within 7 to 10 business days. You're like, no, I absolutely don't want to wait 7 to 10 business days.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. That's so annoying. Those automated responses are pretty annoying in general. Like, just have someone really reply, make it real, get my answer, get me on my way. Yeah.
So I would like to know your guys' opinions about templates. I think people expect me to be anti-template, but I'm not. What about you?
Well, Jeremy, do you want to speak? I mean, we do use macros for our ticketing system, but they're customizable. So you can apply the macro, and then you could format it to fit your exact customer situation. And we do use a more casual voice with our team, so they are written pretty casually. But what I really like about them is that you can tailor make them for that customer. You got the platform set, you can go in there, modify whatever you need. And I think that's, for me, and I think for our team, that's the best type of, canned response that we can have. It's customized canned response, if that makes sense. I don't know, Jeremy, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think one of the dangers or one of the things we really need to be good about, which I think we're hit and miss right now, but is managing those macros, updating them periodically, and then making sure that it's people, that our agents are aware of that central place for those macros, because you can go to just about any agent and they'll have a Word doc full of their own personal canned responses.
Yeah.
And you'll find out, oh, we stopped sending these instructions to customers a year ago, and it'll come up and say, oh, someone asked this customer to do this. Well, we fixed that a year ago. We shouldn't be telling them that anymore. So the central place is really important, and then going through and updating it frequently, and all the stuff you say about voice is spot on. I think we need to audit those for the voice that we want to be speaking to our customers in. One other thing that I would say is, when you talk about voice, I talked with a friend from Roadrunner Sports, and I was like, who's doing all the communication? Because I love your guys' voice. And she was like, well, we all are. We're all trained to speak in this voice. We spend 3 weeks learning how to talk to customers this way, and it's consistent with their marketing message. And,
Yeah.
we're definitely not there, but that's where I'd like us to be.
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to this idea that the writing skills agents need to do their job well are ones that are learned. You know, you do run into that rare person who no amount of teaching is going to help, but that rare person, if that person is on your team, then it's already a problem for you. But people do need consistent training. It's kind of a food, you know, it's kind of a nurturing. They need to get practice, see how other people do the same job they do, you know, read other people's customer service writing. They really do need that kind of input.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. This is a lot of fun. So I guess, Leslie, a little bit more about your company. How do we find you on Twitter, on the web, all that good stuff?
Sure. You find me on the web at Leslie O, and I would be really glad to connect with you. Solemn promise, don't tweet pictures of my breakfast, so I'll see you there, and it will be substantial. My website is ewriteonline.com, EWRITEONLINE.com, and I hope maybe I'll be connecting with you at the Customer Contact Center Demo and Conference in November, or at the HDI conference next spring. I'll be speaking there also. So I hope we'll connect with each other in person too.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely looking forward to it. I've enjoyed following you on Twitter. We of course do those ICMI chats fairly frequently. And I will be at the I'll be at the demo in Chicago.
Great.
Looking forward to it.
How about you, Jenny? Are you coming?
I will not be there, but Jeremy will have to stand in and say hi for me. Jeremy will be Jeremy and Jenny at the event.
Yeah, Jeremy.
Very cool. Well, I'm so sorry for. I think I've been doctoring your first name too. I think it's Leslie O'Flahaven.
There you go.
I got it. I'm going to practice that because it's. You know what it is? I think I read your last name and I looked at the F and the N and I just did Flavahan.
It's a pretty horrible last name, but it's a really nice husband.
Aww.
That's worth it then.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot for inviting me. I'm really glad I got to participate, and I hope I'll hang out with you again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Leslie. It's great.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much to all for watching our Hangout. You can check it out. Leave us your comments on some of your pet peeves of written customer service, and check out all of our other cool Hangouts while you're at it. And in the meantime, have a fantastic Friday, and thank you, Jenny and Leslie.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.